day to you, and you can call me Arthur Twiggs. Today, we continue with our series on Elon Musk. Our first show studied Elon's background and his accomplishments. Some of you found my Elon Musk original show to be a bit of a puff piece. Well, maybe, but truth be told, he does have impressive credentials, and rockets launching into outer space frankly just make me smile. Now, today, we will dig deeper. We now have a basic understanding of who Elon Musk is and his growing empire. Today, we discuss SpaceX, the Starlink Constellation, and the very real possibility that Elon Musk is working with the NSA in the race for quantum supremacy. According to Investopedia.com's top 10 entrepreneurs, a list which Elon is not on, John D. Rockefeller, Thomas Edison, and Henry Ford succeeded by giving their customers the same thing, something better, faster, and cheaper than their nearest competitors. This is exactly what Elon Musk is doing. With Tesla, Elon Musk aims to bring more affordable electric cars to the consumer. With the Boring Company, he wants to make our highways, tunneling them underground to make them better, faster, and cheaper. And with SpaceX and its Starlink, the goal is multifaceted and somewhat obscure. He aims to bring internet service to rural America around the world, and subsequently bring space travel to the everyday consumer. Better, faster, and cheaper internet, solar power, electric cars, highways, space travel, and perhaps the world's largest quantum computer. John D. Rockefeller made his fortune by squeezing out efficiencies, making things faster and cheaper through horizontal and vertical integrations that made Standard Oil synonymous with monopoly. And monopoly also dropped the price of fuel dramatically for the everyday consumer. In my last show, Elon discussed how to make a simple battery cheaper for everyone by breaking it down to its essentials and rebuilding it affordably. Since then, he's purchased a clean energy services company which produces highly efficient, rechargeable lithium-ion batteries. Thomas Edison created most of the electrical power infrastructures in the United States. Edison was a brilliant inventor, but it's his business sense that showed his intelligence. He created the process known as research and development, which is a term even regular people understand today. Using Edison's research and development process, Elon Musk's Falcon 9 rocket has made 83 successful launches. Henry Ford did not invent the automobile. He was not even the best working on motor cars at the time. However, his competitors were selling their automobiles for a price that made the car a luxury for the rich. Ford put America on wheels and simultaneously unleashed the power of mass production. Elon wants everyone to be able to travel to space, and not just Tom Cruise for his next movie, which is happening, by the way, in October of 2021. Tom Cruise will be flying and filming aboard the same Crew Dragon capsule that just made history this past June for being the first privately funded spacecraft to travel to the International Space Station. Just announced this February 1st, Isaacman, a 37-year-old billionaire, will be chartering a rocket and spacecraft from SpaceX for a 3 or 4 day trip to space. Scheduled to launch in October 2021, it is the first mission where none of the people aboard will be professional astronauts from any government space agency. Elon says that if you can go on a roller coaster ride, like an intense roller coaster ride, you should be fine for flying on Dragon. Let's look inside the Crew Dragon capsule to see where you will ride if you have an extra $200 million burning a hole in your pocket. Now that we have some context in which to discuss the magnitude of Elon's ambitions and the inventors who paved his path, today I want to focus on Starlink, Elon Musk's global communication constellation floating just 500 miles above us mere mortals. Starlink is Elon's most controversial ambition. Starlink is a constellation of thousands of small, low-level, Earth-orbiting satellites. The stated goal of Elon's Starlink constellation is to provide high-speed, low-latency internet service from virtually anywhere on the planet. In my last show, we discussed how SpaceX has set a record by sending up 143 of these satellites into the Starlink orbit in one launch. But the number of satellites will ultimately approach, now wait for this, 42,000 satellites. Musk has said that Starlink is a way for SpaceX to generate revenue that can be used to develop more and more advanced rockets and spaceships, ultimately funding Starship. So what is Starship? While the Falcon series rockets that SpaceX has launched successfully over 80 times rank among the most powerful in the world, Elon's ultimate goal is to send people to live on Mars, which will require a much larger rocket, and that is where Starship comes in. Starship is designed to be a fully reusable launch system and is intended to transport as many as 100 people at a time to and from the moon to Mars. Now, Starship's last flight just a few days ago, although a dramatic success in terms of data gathering, ended up in a giant ball of flames. Let's watch the video of SpaceX's Starship crash landing after its successful test flight brought to us by the Associated Press.
3, 2, 1, 0. We have liftoff. All teams triage alarms.
Would you fly in that? I'm pretty sure I would once they figure everything out. Elon has said that he predicted the fiery outcome, and he tweeted that the flight was ultimately a success because of all the data they collected. So how is SpaceX making the money to pay for all of these starships to test? And that would be Starlink, his global communications constellation. According to BusinessInsider.com, Musk first publicly discussed the concept in 2015, noting that a constellation of spacecraft in low Earth orbit could provide far higher data speeds with much less lag compared to traditional satellite internet providers. Since then, SpaceX has earned permission from the government to deploy nearly 12,000 desk-sized satellites by 2027. The company has plans for 42,000 in total and has already launched over 900. Each Starlink satellite weighs 500 pounds and is roughly the size of a table, according to Sky and Telescope magazine. Rather than sending internet signals through electric cables, which must be physically laid down to reach far-flung places, satellite internet works by beaming information through the vacuum of space, where it travels 47% faster than in fiber optic cable. With Starlink, SpaceX hopes to take about 3 to 5% of the annual trillion-dollar global telecommunications industry, or about $30 to $50 billion per year. SpaceX has started a beta test of their broadband internet service provided by those satellites. Just go to www.starlink.com to participate in their beta program if you reside in the northern United States and southern Canada. They are reportedly expanding their testing this February. Let's watch a great video from BusinessInsider.com about what Elon Musk 42,000 satellites can do for and to the Earth.
You're looking at 60 satellites hurtling into the sky. And over the next few decades, Elon Musk is hoping to send 42,000 of these satellites to space, 15 times the number of operational satellites in orbit today. It's part of Starlink, the expansive constellation from Musk and SpaceX that hopes to bring the world low-latency, high-speed internet, promising no more buffering and nearly instantaneous internet in every corner of the world. But experts worry it may come at a hefty cost for space exploration. Nearly half of the world's population does not have access to the internet, because most internet options require an extensive track of costly underground cables, leaving many rural locations offline. And while satellite internet can reach those areas,
traditional satellite internet is provided by a bus-sized spacecraft that has launched 22,236 miles into space in orbit around Earth.
That distance means the satellite can reach places that cables can't. But since that one satellite is meant to service a lot of people, its data capability is limited, which then limits connection speeds. And that signal has to travel a long way, creating a lot of lag. This is where Elon Musk and SpaceX come in.
Starlink is a globe-encircling network of internet beaming satellites that is trying to get you online no matter where you are in the world.
And there's a rather persuading element for SpaceX as well.
Elon Musk has said he's just trying to grab a small percentage of $1 trillion a year telecommunications industry around the world. If SpaceX can pull this off, the company could net about $30 to $50 billion a year.
Musk and SpaceX President Gwynne Shotwell say that much money could single-handedly fund the development of Starlink, Starship, and SpaceX's Mars launch infrastructure. As of early October, SpaceX has launched more than 700 satellites into orbit, with a plan to release a total of 12,000 over the next 5 years, half of them by the end of 2024. And Musk wants to add another 30,000 to that, coming to a total of 42,000 satellites circling Earth. All of these satellites will also be much closer, anywhere from 200 to 400 miles above the planet in low Earth orbit.
This reduces the connection delay that is found with traditional internet satellite.
Once in orbit, these Starlink satellites will be constantly on the move, which is why so many are necessary.
The problem is you have to have many satellites orbiting to make up for the fact that you can't stay in one spot above the Earth, because you need several satellites overhead at any one time to cover many users.
Every satellite will connect with several others via laser beams, creating something like the network's backbone. And to actually bring this internet into your home, you'll need to get a pizza-sized antenna. This phased array antenna can aim its beam at whatever satellite is overhead, which will maintain an internet signal in your home. But this scheme isn't without problems. Starlink satellites are bright. They reflect the sunlight and shine it back towards Earth, so they end up looking like bright, moving stars. As cool as it may look, that comes with problems.
Starlink satellites are most visible in the night sky right before dawn and right after dusk, which is the exact time that astronomers are hunting for near-Earth objects or asteroids, objects that could hit Earth and possibly harm us.
And as more satellites go up, so does the likelihood that they'll interfere with astronomers' views.
If Starlink continues to be a problem for these type of sky surveys, we may not have as much notice as we want to detect a near-Earth object and thwart it and prevent it from hitting Earth.
Beyond detecting deadly asteroids, the wall of satellites could also obstruct the search for new planets or even black holes.
SpaceX realized it had to do something, and it did. It created what's called a darksat, which is a satellite that has all of its shiny parts coated in a very black, dark material.
It also tried adding visors to shield those shiny parts from the ground. But unless the satellites are cloaked like a spaceship in Star Trek, technology that does not exist, none of this will fully solve the problem. And even if it did, there is a much bigger issue at hand.
There's a concern about space debris because when you have so many satellites in the closest, tightest, densest orbits around Earth, there's a higher chance that those satellites could collide with each other or with other satellites.
Those crashes would create clouds of debris that can orbit the Earth for years, decades, or even centuries.
And that debris can then disable or cause other satellites to crash into each other, creating even more debris, and this problem spirals out of control in an effect called the Kessler syndrome. And if we reach that, then essentially space is too unsafe to access.
To be clear, the risk of a runaway Kessler syndrome is very low.
But the potential impacts of that are so high that scientists are working very hard to control such an event from ever happening.
SpaceX has said its satellites can automatically move out of the way to avoid collisions. But dozens of SpaceX satellites are already disabled and can't move at all, posing a potential threat. And those concerned with SpaceX's plans are lobbying the FCC to rein in the company and more strictly regulate low Earth orbit. And that could make it more expensive and harder to deploy the planned 42,000 satellites.
Elon Musk and SpaceX are not alone. Amazon's rocket company is called Blue Origin, but their rocket for deploying satellites is not flying yet. And there is also OneWeb, which I'm raising a quizzical brow here, funded by SoftBank. Formerly known as World VU Satellites, OneWeb is a global communications company founded by Greg Weiler. The company is headquartered in London and was founded in Arlington, Virginia, and commenced launches of the OneWeb satellite constellation, a network of more than 650 low Earth orbit satellites. But Elon's biggest challenger is China. On January 29th of this year, China launched a trio of reconnaissance satellites from the Gobi Desert. As of today, China has launched about 300 satellites into orbit. The fear among scientists is that the Earth will be overwhelmed with 100,000 satellites orbiting if there is no regulation. So, how far along is SpaceX and its Starlink Constellation in achieving its monetary goal of reaching Mars? According to CNNBusiness.com, SpaceX has received almost $900 million in federal subsidies to provide broadband to rural America. The U.S. government plans to give SpaceX nearly $1 billion to beam internet from space to people across rural America, where 3 out of 5 people say access to broadband is still a pressing issue. The company will receive one of the largest subsidies handed out by the Federal Communications Commission under a new program designed to encourage companies to extend broadband access into the United States' most unserved areas over the next 10 years. SpaceX's win is notable because the company competed against more established internet service providers, unlike traditional internet service satellites, where one satellite beams down service. SpaceX's Starlink internet service relies on the experimental swarm of nearly 1,000 satellites whizzing around Earth at more than 17,000 miles per hour. They beam the internet to high-tech antennas the size of a pizza mounted on people's homes. And according to The Independent, Elon Musk now controls over a quarter of all active satellites as SpaceX prepares to launch its 1,000th Starlink satellite. Elon Musk's power over information is much greater than Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook or Jack Dorsey's social media apps, which will rely on Elon Musk for transmission. I believe Elon Musk may be also working in more clandestine operations with the government, which would make a lot of sense considering their current partnership. Could there be also quantum computers and nodes on every satellite that he sends up? If I were a betting person, I would place my chips in that corner for sure. The NSA posted on their website and stated, as an effort towards transparency, that in regards to crypto security in a post-quantum cryptography world, this is important. Okay, let's pause. What is post-quantum cryptography? According to Wikipedia, post-quantum cryptography refers to cryptographic algorithms, usually public key algorithms that are thought to be secure against an attack by a quantum computer. In a synopsis of their work in regards to post-quantum cryptography and quantum key distribution, the NSA says that they continue to evaluate the use of cryptography solutions, meaning they do not have the answers yet. Therefore, meaning we are currently open to a quantum attack. Do you believe that? The race for quantum supremacy is very real. I have 3 shows on the subject. You know that I wonder a lot. So I am now wondering, who would I pick if I were the NSA to solve this very problem of post-quantum cryptography? Well, first of all, quantum computers need extreme cold in order to operate, as we discussed on my first quantum show. And there's no place colder than space. So, if I had a quantum problem, I would pick the guy sending up 42,000 satellites and hopefully hitch a ride somehow. These satellites weigh 500 pounds and are the size of a desk. So, a 50 cubic quantum computer or smaller could fit in something that size. And with 42,000 of them, it may be possible for the quantum computers on board each satellite to be even smaller. IBM's most powerful quantum computer will have 1,000 cubics by 2023, so IBM says. Elon would only have to place 23 cubics of quantum technology aboard each of these satellites to reach a quantum capacity of 1 million cubics. Even placing 50 cubics on each of these 42,000 satellites may be possible, which could create a quantum computer of over 2 million cubics. These 42,000 Starlink satellites will travel in orbit together. How would you connect all these cubics? I have absolutely no idea, but even if I didn't yet know how to connect a million cubics, I'd still put them on the satellites until I figured it out. According to Space.com, back when Elon Musk revealed the Starlink Constellation project for the first time, he was a bit mysterious about the potential of these satellites. He said we're talking about something, the satellites that is, which is in the long term, so he's thinking long term, is like rebuilding the internet in space. Elon wants to rebuild the internet in space. He actually said these words. Again, we're talking about the satellites, which in the long term is like rebuilding the internet in space. And what does a newly built internet resemble most likely? A quantum computer? Whew. The reasoning makes far too much sense to me. What do you think? I want to know, is Elon's goal really to go to Mars, or is quantum supremacy the goal? What do you think? I'd love to hear from you. Please join me for my next show when we will continue our series on Elon Musk. I'm so excited. My mind just can't stop. I want to know the answers. Please tell your friends and family to join in, and be sure to subscribe. Hit the like button and the alarm button to be notified of future shows. Thank you so much for watching.